Hold your breath, okay?
He didn't notice me. He definitely didn't notice the baton in my hand that stayed far back, patient as a spider. He was preoccupied, watching the girl. Only when she got into her car did he walk away. I followed. It just started to rain lightly when he finally turned off onto a service road near the edge of a development. New builds, empty lots, the kind of place where screams get swallowed by distance. I let my boots scrape across the gravel as I picked up my pace. I wanted him to hear me. He turned, annoyed, calling out some confident insult as I kept my pace. I didn't let him finish. I hit him hard enough to make his teeth click. He went down into the mud like a man who'd never been knocked down before. Like gravity surprised him. He tried to get up. I put my boot on his forearm and made him stay. The fifth finger breaks with a sound like a green branch snapping. He doesn't scream anymore. He just whimpers, a snot-filled, hiccuping sound in the downpour. He spits blood and rainwater at my boots. His eyes blown wide with a pain so deep, it stripped him of everything but animal instinct.
Please, no more.
The rain runs in rivulets from my hood. The smell of his fear is like ozone and sour milk. I lean in, so he doesn't miss a single word. I say in a low voice, "Welcome to my holy hell." I leave him in the ditch, the way he left her. As I fade into the tree line, I allow myself one glance back. He's not trying to get up. He's just staring at his ruined hand. I smile. I'm his world now. His judge, jury, executioner. His God. People think revenge is an explosion. Hot, wild, dramatic. And it could be, if you're dumb. Really, it's calculated, strategic. But if you concentrate on, let's say, 60 seconds of focused violence, that can cause fire to every nerve ending, you're doing it right. I didn't wake up one day and decide to become the kind of person who breaks bones, then sets a follow-up appointment like a dentist to do it all over again. That's not how it happened. It started with silence. Not a metaphorical one, but a real, ringing silence where Sasha, my sister's voice, used to be. She called me every day like clockwork. Sometimes we'd talk, and sometimes she'd just say,
"Hope you have a great day,"
and hang up. I tried to do the right thing first. I did. I went to the police. I wanted the system to work. I gave them Sasha's case on a silver platter. Her routine. The bar she owned. The fact she'd never just walk away from her life and she'd never not call me. They weren't trying to listen to me, not really. You ever walk into a station trying to report a missing person and watch a man behind a counter decide if your emergency is worth paperwork? It's a special kind of humiliation. He took my statement, told me they'd look into it. He thanked me. Then I watched his focus drift to the clock over my shoulder. And then I waited. 2 days. 3. A week. Nothing. There was nothing. No more 10 p.m. memes. No more asking to borrow money she'd never pay back. Just a detective that showed up on my doorstep, hat in hand, saying they'd found her in a shallow grave off the I-85. It wasn't a grave. It was a ditch. A piece of runoff infrastructure. She was destroyed. Her joints were shattered. Wrists, ankles. What ultimately killed her was the wound on her side. A big, gaping hole. He had cut into her and removed her 7th rib. None of this was anything surgical. He literally just cut her open, reached in and wrenched it out. A detail I had found out later. I figure they held back this kernel of horror to trip up a false confession. They had nothing. All they could tell me was that her murder looked similar to a series of others. Serial killer, they suspected. Targeting women, 20s, dark hair, pretty. He took the only person I cared about. 3 months after I buried her, the case went quiet. My grief, a quiet, furious rot, crystallized into something sharp, durable, and very, very simple. The dark web forum wasn't hard to find. Monsters love to fester together. And in that pile of excrement, they whisper their triumphs to other filth. It took the last of my savings, all of my time, and a persona that made my skin crawl. But after months and months, I finally bought a name. Victor Ensley. Later, I learned he was the disappointing son of the Ensley pharmaceutical fortune. He claimed to despise the family, but he latched onto his trust fund like a leech. It was a bottomless well that paid for his research, his privacy, his illusion of invincibility. I didn't go with a gun. I went with binoculars. For weeks I watched him. He was a ghost in a golden cage. Lifted weights in a pristine home gym, almost obsessive with it. He moved with the arrogant surety of someone who'd never been truly hit by life. He thought his money and his intellect were a force field. And up to this point, he'd been right. One night as I followed him down a city street, I lost sight of him in a crowd. I circled back, scanning lots and buildings. Then the light rain started coming down harder. In the morning, they found her. Another woman, cast aside in a narrow channel off the road. The news didn't have much details, but I knew. That's when I made up my mind. Prison was a revolving door for a man with his resources. Death was a mercy he didn't deserve. So I devised a new system. He needed to understand loss, not of life, but of peace, of safety, of the very integrity of his body. He needed to live in the dread he'd sold. The first hunt was messy. It was cathartic. I was filled with adrenaline and rage. An unplanned mistake in a parking garage. I beat him so bad I could see death in his eyes. As my hands closed around his throat, a clear, cold thought cut through the red haze. Stop. Let him go. Let him heal. Then do it again and again and again. It became a visceral addiction. The planning, the hunt, the moment of impact. I lost my job as a logistics contractor. Too many unexplained absences. I didn't care. I'd been shipped across the world, slept in deserts, hunted my own food. I'd be fine. This was the only mission that mattered anymore.
I'm a connoisseur. I'd like to say equal opportunist. But that would make me a liar, and I feel I can only be one of the two. I started where any normal person starts when they're about to do something abnormal. The internet. Name, address history, business affiliations, social media. And sometimes I dig a little deeper. I have money. The kind of money that makes consequences slide off you like water on a waxed car. The family money made it easy. Private databases, off-the-books background checks. Money isn't a shield. It's a filter, removing the trivial annoyances of life so you can focus on your craft. My type isn't just about hair or age. It's a certain solitude, a quiet life that won't make loud ripples. I keep myself fit. Aesthetics are important. I was taught that early on. I look in the mirror and see a controlled power, a presence, a predator, top of the food chain. One night I was attacked for the first time. Me. Attacked. By some random animal. It was as if he was possessed. Probably drugs. It was bad luck. Particularly since I refused to go to the hospital. My DNA is my own. But I spent a fortune on a private doctor who asked no questions. I was told I had a concussion, and when I looked in the mirror, I saw the ring of bruises around my neck, a black eye and a swollen lip. I looked like a whore who was beat down by her pimp. I laughed, and I wrote it off. Then there was the second time. I didn't know it was the same man. Not until I woke up on the motel floor, my face on fire. I pulled myself up, feeling my cheek tear away from the carpet fibers with a sickening tug. In an instant, it all comes back to me. I'm running. I didn't remember getting cut. I just remember the moment I realized I was leaking, warm down my ribs, cold at my belt line. And then that sudden stickiness when blood decides it belongs to everything. The hallway in this rundown motel is black, except for the exit sign above the back door, coughing red light. My body slams into it. It doesn't budge. I'm barefoot. That's the first humiliation. The second is the sound behind me. Slow, patient. My hand closes around the only weapon I have. A broken toilet tank lid, which was my second humiliation. He had caught me by surprise in the bathroom. It's cracked in half, but it's heavy, and I'm ready. And really, it's all I've got. I pivot, turn, and swing. Even though I hit his shoulder, his hand shoots out of the darkness and clamps my throat, fingers digging on either side of my esophagus. Not panic strength, not adrenaline strength. This is pure menace. I'd be impressed if I wasn't on the other end. My back hits the wall, hard enough to rattle the already twisted picture frame. A voice in the dark, low, smiling.
Breathe.
He squeezes harder. I choke. The pain is there, sure, but it's distant background noise. The real terror is the sudden animal certainty that I can't get air. My vision tunnels. My ears start to ring like someone's hitting a bell inside my skull. I'm strong, though, and I've got reach. I swing, hit him in the face, the arm, the side. He tucks his ribs in like he's bracing for it. Not a normal punch. Of course not. He lets go of my throat and brings his arm in like he's blocking, and for half a second I think I've bought myself space. Then, in the same motion, snaps back towards me and drives his elbow into my goddamned eye socket. White explodes behind my face. I don't even know how the fuck that happened. My head slams into the wall and bounces. He grabs my throat again. Something touches my cheek. Cold. Metal. I freeze. A gun? A knife? Doesn't matter. The message is the same. Don't move. He leans close.
I told you, you don't get to die fast.
His eyes are empty, and for one insane second I think, is that what I look like? He raises his free hand. There's a small cheese grater in it. It's so stupid, so wrong, I actually laugh, like it's a joke. He smiles with me. My stomach drops. Then he smashes it onto my face and shoves down. I scream. I think I blacked out. The next thing I remember is trying to detach myself from the motel floor. I'm panting in my room, staring at the carpet fibers that refuse to let go of the slivers of skin it pulled from my face. It stings all over, and the moment I touch my cheek, I set it on fire. My fingers come away with thick, tacky blood. I snap out of staring at my fingers and bolt upright, spinning, searching the room for where he's hiding. Nothing. In this tiny room, I can see straight into the bathroom. Curtain open, half the toilet tank lid still on the ground. No one. I slam the door to my room and lock it. I'm not surprised no one came to my rescue. This isn't the kind of place where you meet good Samaritans. It's the kind you pay the man behind the counter to leave and ask no questions. The kind you do terrible things in. In fact, is the very same room I use sometimes. I finally stop stalling. In the bathroom, under the fluorescent light, I surveyed the damage. The cheese grater had turned my face into a topographic map of pain. Ridges of raw flesh, valleys of deep scrapes. Twisted yarns of skin hung down from my cheeks, my chin, my nose. That bastard, that fucking sick bastard, does he even know how much money and time it's going to take to fix this? I'm pissed. But I have a suspicious feeling my anger is to hide something else. something I don't want to give a name to. I don't know how long I stare before something else cuts through the shock. Words. There's a message written on the mirror.
You left her in a ditch. It was July.
A smirk twists my ruined face, and I pay for it immediately. White-hot agony firing through every exposed nerve. Okay, a game. He knows what I am. And instead of going to the police, he wants to play. He thought he was the hunter now. He doesn't understand. I'm the one who studies. I'm the one who adapts. Looking at my ruined face, I knew he'd come for me again. That was our second encounter, and I already saw his pattern. Pain, recovery, anticipation. After the small fortune I paid for my discreet surgery, I moved. Installed a fortress of security. I stopped hunting, not because I was afraid, because I was curious about my new subject, him. I analyzed every attack, the intervals, the tools. He was teaching me his methodology, and I was an excellent student. The third time he came for me, I knew everything. Her name was Sasha Givens. She called him Eli, listed as emergency contact. She had a cat named Pizza. I know all this now not because I went looking for it, but because he told me. And he made sure I understood. Between kicks, between punches. He repeated it. I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. When suddenly I did. A memory slammed into me. That night was humid, the clouds hanging low and heavy with one of those random summer storms that never cool anything down. I could feel the rain coming. It was late, low traffic. I watched her leave the bar alone. She wasn't drunk. She was tired. There's a difference. I waited near her car, but not too close. Hood up, looking stranded. Classic bait, oldest trick. When she passed, I smiled like I was embarrassed and said, "Hey, sorry, can you help me for a second?" She slowed. Polite pause. Her eyes flicked to my hands, my posture, the open hood. Calculating. I raised my hands like I meant no harm. "Sorry, thought you might be able to help." She wasn't naive. She didn't step closer, stayed just out of reach.
Everything all right?
I gave her one of my smiles, the one that usually gets me what I want. "I think my battery's dead." She didn't lean in like I expected. She pulled out her phone and said she could call a tow. Smarter than the average bear. I smiled my lopsided, grateful smile. No worries. Was trying to see if I could save some money by getting a jump. Thanked her. Unlatched the hood. Pretended to grab my phone. I'm not an idiot. She still had to pass me to get to her driver's door. I closed the hood and took the tire iron from the inside lip. Hit her. Once. Twice. A third time, to be sure. She went down hard on the wet asphalt, gasping, eyes blown wide with adrenaline, already trying to get back up. I straddled her and pinned her arms. She didn't scream, and that should have been the red flag. She stared at me like she was memorizing my face. Women don't usually look at me like that. Well, not after a hit to the head. But she did. Her lips moved, and at first I thought she was praying. Then I heard it. A name. Not God, not Mom. A man's name. Said like a warning and a promise.
Eli.
She whispered. I slapped her. Shut up. She tried to pull free, swallowed blood, still said it again.
Eli. Will.
I hit her harder, furious that she wasn't paying attention to the only God that mattered. Me. Then she choked. I thought she was coughing. She was laughing. The rain finally broke through the clouds. When she smiled, the drops made clean white circles on her blood-stained teeth. With that, I finally let my fury out. The thing I keep bottled up inside poured itself all over her and ate her alive. Sasha was different. I see that now. I misjudged her. She fought with a ferocious will to live. I usually like that part, but she wasn't just flailing. She was precise. Actually got a few good ones in, but it was inconvenient, messy. I had to expedite things. I remember the look in her eyes at the end. Not fear, anger. I should have paid attention, but I got distracted. When you love your work, it's easy to get engulfed in it. When it was over, I stood and watched the rain wash the evidence away. Then I left. I slept like a baby. When I learned about Sasha Givens, her life, her brother, the last piece finally clicked into place. This was personal, and personal people make mistakes. They get emotional. They rush. I didn't. I waited. I planned. I lifted weights, already imagining his rib bone next to the others in the display case. Hell, maybe this year I'll hang a whole rib cage on the wall. I'm strong. I'm smart. I can anticipate people like him. Weeks passed, then 3 months, then 4. My face healed. It felt tight. I wasn't the same, but with the top surgeons I was close. It was only a matter of time. I didn't sit still. I trained harder, twice as much. I wanted my body ready before my mind had time to doubt. I bought out the entire penthouse floor, the only way to be sure. Any sound that didn't come from me would be him. For a while, I almost believed he'd lost interest. That was my mistake. The night the Time's Up note appeared, taped neatly to my entry door, I was already waiting for it. I checked the cameras. Nothing. Normal activity. I told myself he must have been one of the delivery men. That night, I didn't sleep. The power cut at 3:12 a.m. My hand closed around the cold grip of the gun under my pillow. Excitement washed over me, riding the adrenaline hard enough to drown out what little fear I had left. I smiled in the dark. "Eli," I whispered to the room. "I've been doing my homework." Silence. Then, the softest sound at my bedroom door.
Rain is a solvent. It dissolves evidence. It's a co-conspirator, dilutes blood, washes fibers into sewers, turns footprints into rumors, makes every one of my scenes look like the city itself is trying to weep the victims away. Every one of them were forensically silent. That isn't luck. This killer was precise. More than that, he was patient. He used the storms as an accomplice. That speaks to planning, to resourcefulness, to having a place to wait and watch. Women, mid-20s to early 30s, living alone, no obvious connection, different jobs, different neighborhoods, different social circles. The only consistency was how they were found, out in the open, poorly concealed, and always in the rain. The lab hated my cases. Nothing clean, nothing definitive. Trace evidence degraded into maybes. My captain kept saying transient. That was bullshit. It was lazy. I started thinking something else. Insulated. The victims had no direct links. Different worlds. These women weren't working girls, or so young they didn't know better. Nowadays, most knew what to look for, and most wouldn't let just anyone near them. But in a city, money is the one bridge that connects everything. I stopped looking for a person who crossed their paths and started looking for a system that could. Credit histories, parking tickets, toll road data, the digital exhaust everyone leaves behind. I hired a forensic accountant the department could barely afford. A cynical woman named Lynn, who spoke in tech language I barely could keep up with. She finally said,
"For fuck's sake, Mercer, I'll run a social footprint. Either they'll show us what we need to track based on their own social medias, or we get to see who's tracking them."
To be fair, she did way more than that. The victims didn't shop at the same stores, but she was able to find a thread. The data of our victims, and the data of dozens of other women, had been run through several high-tier private background check services. The kind that blur the line between corporate security and personal stalking. The kind you need a corporate account or serious cash to access. The payments were a nesting doll of LLCs and holding companies, more than a few in other countries. And unless I found something better, that's where the trail would die, buried under lawyers and lawsuits the department couldn't afford. Lynn's competitive. I might have suggested that even with a warrant, she probably wouldn't find anything. Not against people with that kind of money. Weeks later, I came in to find a note on my desk. 3 words. The Ensley Trust. The Ensleys. Old pharma money. Careful. Litigious. Their disappointing son, Victor, was the black sheep who dabbled in data security. A polite way of saying he lived off a trust fund while pretending to have a career. His official address was a luxury high-rise. His real life, thanks to Lynn's digging, was a series of short-term luxury rentals paid for by an innocuous holding company. A shell. A ghost with a gold-plated key. Even better, it looked as though a data security company had run some checks for said company. Still, I couldn't get near him with. Not yet. The family lawyers were a fortress. They've won too many lawsuits to go after, without some solid evidence backing me. So I started following him myself. Victor Ensley moved through the city like a shark in deep water. Smooth, purposeful, barely causing a ripple. Fit, groomed, expensively casual. He had the physical confidence of a man who'd never been denied anything, including safety. He'd leave his secure building, drive his quiet German car, and just circulate. He'd sit in coffee shops and watch. He'd walk through parks at twilight. He looked casual. He wasn't. He was a predator, but a specific kind. He wasn't hunting from desperation. He was curating from a position of absolute, bored security. I followed him on 3 rainy nights. The first time he went straight home. The second, he drove for hours with no destination. Just loops, like he was waiting for something. The third time, he parked near a bar and sat there. Didn't get out. Didn't check his phone. Just watched the door. Almost an hour later, he started his car and drove away. Then one night, while watching Victor's building from across the street, I noticed a second shadow. It drove up at the same time its headlights shut off. It parked far back. Engine off. No interior light. At first I thought rideshare. Then an hour passed. Then 2. The rain came down harder. The kind that makes people leave. The car stayed. That's when my attention shifted. Not to Victor. To the watcher. A man eventually got out. Didn't rush. Didn't hide. He crossed the street like he belonged there. I ran his plates after he left. Eli Givens. Clean. Of course, he didn't look like someone who belonged anywhere near the Ensley circle. I followed him the next night. And the next. He never approached Victor when I was there. Never interfered. He just orbited. That's when I understood something that made my stomach tighten. I wasn't tracking a killer. I was watching a hunt in progress. The night the truth finally crystallized, I was sitting in my car with the rain painting the windshield in long, broken rivulets. I was going through my file, thick with my notes and Victor's victims. I hit a section of news clippings. At the time, I was expecting to find the killer somewhere in the background. Instead, I saw a familiar face. The photo was from Sasha's funeral. Eli, placing flowers, his face full of grief. Eli Givens, brother of Sasha Givens, victim number 7, the bar owner. Her file was on my desk, buried under newer horrors. I'd spoken to him. He'd been calm. At the time, I thought it was just a soldier's calm under chaos. He'd given me everything and asked for nothing. His eyes had already been looking past me, like he knew I'd be useless. The connection hit like a live wire in my chest. Victor Ensley, with his money and his data streams, had selected Sasha Givens. And now her brother was orbiting him like a dead star, all cold gravity and no light. A man who had dissolved his old self in acid and rebuilt something with a single, structural purpose. I pulled my own surveillance log from a month before Sasha's death. A note. Subject V. Ensley observed stationary near the Lux Lounge for 78 minutes. No contact observed. Departed 23:42. I looked it up. The Lux Lounge was Sasha's bar. I'd sat there, watching Victor wait for Sasha, but she never came out. And I just wrote a fucking note about it. That's how I knew. Eli was the reason for the cracks in Victor's golden armor. Eli had been the reason for the stiffness in Victor's left shoulder, or the time I saw the thick band of purple and yellow around his wrist. The afternoon in a cafe when he was reading, but his right hand was wrapped in an expensive silk scarf, his fingers held in a careful, unnatural curl. He wasn't just being followed, he was being systematically broken, and he was hiding it. No police reports. No calls to his family's formidable security. This was a private war, and he was refusing to admit he was losing. Eli wasn't just planning revenge. He was administering it in doses, and by seeing those injuries and doing nothing, I was becoming a collaborator. Every bruise I wrote down was a crime I was allowing to continue. Victor thought his money and his pride made him invincible. Eli was proving him wrong. One nerve, one tendon, one bone at a time. I hadn't just failed to catch a killer. I had been a passive witness to the prelude of a murder. Protocol told me to bring in Eli Givens and find out what he knows, to put a detail on Victor, to stir the hornet's nest. My gut told me what would happen instead. Victor would go back into his gilded cage. His family's money would absorb him. And eventually, he'd hunt again. So, I made a terrible, quiet choice. I wouldn't help either one. But I would watch and document the consequences of my failure play out to their brutal, logical end. I would bear witness to the hell my bureaucracy had enabled, and the one soldier brother was now building by hand. I became the third shadow in the rain, filling my notebooks with evidence of a justice the courts could never provide. Watching the hunter, watching the prey, waiting to see which one the storm would wash away first.
He thought his new fortress was a puzzle I couldn't solve. He thought like rich people think, in terms of barriers to buy. I think in terms of pressure points. The human one dozing at the security desk. The utility line buried behind the hedges, the blind corner between camera arcs. I was already standing in the dark of his bedroom when his breathing changed. The smell of his expensive cologne mixed with the old, honest smell of fear. I let the silence stretch, let his brain do the work for me. He came up off the floor fast, faster than I expected. Good. He was taller than me, broader now. Months of gym work carved into his shoulders and chest. He didn't scream. He didn't freeze. He did what men like him always do when they finally get their moment. He charged. The first punch was heavy, sloppy. It clipped my shoulder and still felt like getting hit with a bat. The second one I blocked. The third one I let him throw so he could feel brave. He was breathing hard already, smiling.
I know you're not a cop. You're just some...
I stepped inside his reach, cracked my fist in his jaw, and took his balance away. He didn't even understand what had happened. His feet were still trying to fight while his body was already on its way to the floor. When he hit, the air left him in a grunt. He tried to scramble up. I put my knee on his hip and my hand on his wrist, and felt the joint decide it wanted to be something else. He yelled in pain and swung his other arm wildly, caught me in the ribs, hard enough to hurt, hard enough to make him think this was still a fight. It wasn't. I took that hand too, got in his face. "Do you remember her name?" I asked. He started babbling about how he was going to kill me, about how he killed her. I broke his other hand, not in one clean motion, methodically, in pieces. He screamed. I let it run out of him, let it wind down like a siren dying, until there was nothing left but his ruined breathing and the rain tapping on the glass. When he could breathe again, I leaned close enough that he could smell the rain still clinging to my jacket. "I'm not here to kill you, Victor. You know that. The sterile rage of it filling me like a drug. I want you to live. I want you to be a tourist in my private hell, because you're the prey, and I'm the devil." That's when he broke.
He was right. I had misjudged everything. He graciously explained that no matter how much I yelled, no one would come. He drugged the guard, and the one cunt of a neighbor I have mysteriously won a 2-night stay at a luxury hotel and spa. When the lights went out, I assumed he was coming for me. I was counting on it. I stood in my bedroom with the barrel trained on the door, waiting. What I didn't know was that he was already inside, under my bed, like a goddamned boogeyman. I was still standing tall when my leg stopped working. He slashed out from under the bed and drove the blade into my calf. Not a slice, a deep, burying stab. My muscles seized and then let go. I went down hard, my head cracking against the hardwood. He crawled out like a spider. I brought the gun up and pulled the trigger. Nothing.
"You have to take the safety off,"
he said calmly. Then he hit me with it. He was on me before my brain caught up. 3 heavy punches and I was seeing blurry. But somewhere under the pain, something lit up inside me. This was just a fight. I was bigger, stronger. I trained for this. I knew how to hurt people. If I could just get my feet under me, if I could just get one clean grip on him, I could turn it, break him, end it. I went for him, lit him up with punches to the ribs, liver, anything I could reach. I heard them land, so I pushed forward. I felt the tide turning. My adrenaline spiked with the anticipation of finally killing him. And all at once I swung at nothing. One stupid miscalculation, and my body was falling again. After that, things stopped being a fight. He worked on me with a terrible surgical patience. He was consumed by it. I understood that part. And in a moment of lucid agony, I understood the real horror. He would move me an inch at a time, test a joint, press a thumb into the place that made my vision go white, wait for my breathing to change, then adjust. He popped my shoulder out of its socket and left it there while he did other things. He bent fingers the wrong way until something inside them gave up. To see how much I could feel before I started to shake too hard to be useful. Sometimes he would stop and just watch my chest, waiting for my pulse to slow down before continuing. He didn't want it to end. This was his purpose now. He tried to keep me conscious as long as possible. When I passed out, he waited. He ate. And when I woke up, he started again. Time stopped behaving normally. At some point, I realized I was on my dining table. My arms, legs, and torso were strapped down. Pain wasn't sharp anymore. It was educational. Between it, I talked. I told him things I'd never said out loud. Not confessions, explanations. And when that wasn't enough, I told him about the women, what I did, what I learned, just to see if I could make him angry enough to finish it. He never argued, never corrected me, never lost control and plunged the knife into my throat. That was worse. While he was bandaging one of the wounds, I used the only weapon I had left. You're just like me. He paused.
No. You break things to feel powerful. I break you to prove you're not. We are nothing alike.
When I woke up again, I just lay there in my own piss and shit. Tremors racked my body from the pain. I stared at the ceiling I'd memorized. I wasn't tied down anymore. I just couldn't move. The worst of the wounds were patched. The stumps were cauterized. It took me a while to understand what I was looking at. 3 of my fingers had been tossed onto the hardwood like trash. I was tired. Not just in body. In theory. My entire idea of control, of superiority, was lying in pieces with my bones on the floor. And somewhere deep down, that terrified me more than dying ever had. Worse, I know in a few weeks or months, I'll see him again. He told me so. He said he needs to study how to remove my ribs without killing me, but I won't underestimate him again. Next time I'll be ready.
The burner phone glows in the cup holder. A news alert slides across the screen. Body found in storm drain. Female, 20s. Foul play suspected. My thumb swipes. The cold in my gut turns to ice. The details are sparse. But one line isn't. Suspected cause of death. Large open wound to the side of the chest. I stare at it too long. I know that wound. Victor's signature. But Victor is a little busy at the moment. He's in his penthouse under guard, missing too much blood and too many bones to even feed himself. I know. I put him there. The encrypted app on the phone pings. A message from the same anonymous string that first sold me Victor's name. It looks like the rainy season is coming early, right, Eli? My stomach drops. I never gave this sick fuck my name. I shut down the phone, pull the battery and SIM card out, and smash them both. The only light left is the slow red pulse of the scanner and the streetlights bleeding through the rain. Somewhere out there, another monster knows who I am.
The ditch smells of wet earth and decay. The flash from the CSU photographer's camera pops, freezing the girl's final pose in stark, terrible white. Young, dark hair, a crude, gaping horror on her side. 7th rib missing. My captain's voice is a rumble next to me, trying to fit a square horror into a round hole.
Mercer, look at this. The rib. It's him. It's the same guy. Has to be.
I don't look at him. I look at the wound. The edges are jagged, savage, enthusiastic. But there's a carelessness to it. An impatience. Victor was a vain bastard, and he brought that same trait into his crime scenes. My mind goes to Victor's penthouse 2 weeks ago. Hours after Eli entered the building, he finally left. I slipped by the passed-out guard slumped over the front desk. He had a pulse. Security screens in front of him, already black. The door wasn't even locked. The smell of burnt skin was in the air. Victor was a silhouette on a table, backlit by the city's glow through floor-to-ceiling windows. He wasn't the sleek predator anymore. He was a broken puppet. A hand mutilated and missing fingers, blood already soaking through bandages, was resting on his stomach like a dead bird. I saw the burned stumps of where his fingers should have been. His face was a mask of surgical tape and swollen, discolored flesh. One leg was elevated, immobilized. He was awake, staring at the ceiling. He didn't even look like he was inside his body anymore. He was hidden away in a vast, empty husk. He didn't even flick his eyes toward me as I stood in the doorway. I was a ghost. I should have felt horror, or pity, or professional outrage at the vigilante who did this. I felt nothing but a cold, calm certainty. This was the only math that had ever added up.
Mercer?
The captain's voice yanks me back to the rain, the ditch, the body. It's not him, I say, my voice flat, final.
How can you be sure?
I finally turn to him. Because the wound looks amateur, rushed, and not precise like the others. He stares, confused, already building his rebuttal. He doesn't know what I know. He never saw Victor's empty eyes. I'm the only one holding the full, terrible picture. And the worst part, looking at this poor, discarded girl, I feel a new dread. This isn't over.
The scene is familiar. A ditch, mud, floodlights painting everything the color of old bone. The girl is young, dark hair, one arm twisted at an angle that makes the stomach try to crawl out of itself. Mercer stands at the edge of the tape, not speaking, but I know she's thinking, working the angles. Same as the others, I say. The words come out easy. They always do. The CSU photographer lifts the sheet. There it is. The wound. Low on the left side. Ragged. Too much force. Too hurried. They took the 7th rib. The air leaves my lungs like I've been hit. For a moment, the rain isn't rain anymore. It's another city. Another year. Another version of me, with less gray in his hair and more fire in his chest. It's July 7th. Of course it is. It's always been July 7th. I'm the 7th child, born 7-7. Badge number ending in 7s. Wedding anniversary 7-7. Lucky number 7. But some numbers aren't just numbers. Some are invitations. Some are signatures. Some are promises you make to yourself before you understand how long a life really is.
Sir?
Mercer says quietly. I realize I've been staring. I step closer, crouch, pretend to study the wound. Mercer's right. It isn't as good as it should be. The edges are messy. The pull was all wrong, impatient, a rush job. It's been a long time.
Copycat?
Someone says behind me. The word floats in the rain between us. I straighten up. We can't say that for sure. Maybe he was in a rush. Mercer's eyes flick to me. She's good. She always has been. A dog with a bone. She doesn't miss much, and I've worked with her long enough to know she's not telling me something. We need to move fast, I add, before he does it again. She nods. Later, I'm alone in my office. I don't turn the light on. I sit in the dark and let the memory finish assembling itself. I was young when I started. A patrol cop with a talent for finding the edges of things. Cities blurred together back then. Different states, different names. A trail that only existed if you stood far enough away. I told myself it was a calling. Then I met her. Then we had kids. Then life did what life does. And I stopped. I really did. Mostly. For a long time, I was safe. Then Victor Ensley showed up. And something old and patient sat up inside me and stretched. You don't kill a thing like that inside yourself. You don't bury it. You don't drown it. You feed it carefully, in private, in pieces. The dark web is a wonderful place for a man who wants to remember without touching. A sewer of confessions, of manifestos, of like-minded people performing for each other in the dark. I used to go there late, when the house was asleep, when the world was quiet. I'd read. I'd let it stretch. I'd let the creature inside my brain gorge itself on other people's words and other people's pictures. And when it was full, I'd close the browser, lock the creature back in its box, and go back to being a husband, a father, a captain. Safe. Then the girls started showing up, making it harder to keep the box closed. And one night, I noticed a new shape in the noise. A man asking the wrong questions in the right places. Careful, methodical, angry in a way that pretends to be calm. I did some digging. It wasn't hard, not with my connections. That's when I got a name. Eli Givens. At first, I was going to ignore him. Grief tourists come and go. They always do. But then I saw what he was really looking for, and I thought, maybe it would be interesting to tip the first domino. Not to help him, not to stop him. Just to see what would happen if something pure and furious collided with something damaged and numb. Hell, I'm the one who always used the number 7. The kid was practically stealing from me. I almost felt bad for the guy when I looked him up. Victor Ensley. The name and picture meant nothing to me. But his mom's picture did. It just happened to be raining. But I gotta admit, that was a smart move by him. Back in my day, it was all about a mask, which is what I had with me when I pulled them over, which she didn't see me slip on in the rain. I didn't know he was in the back seat until I came back later with the entire department. At first, I thought he'd at least recognize my voice, but the kid never said anything, and soon he was irrelevant. Until now. I open a drawer. There's nothing dramatic inside, just an old bead necklace, the kind everyone's seen on my desk at one time or another, the one I get teased about, some leftover arts and crafts project from my kids when they were young. Or so goes the story. The beads are small, smooth, almost perfectly round. I roll one between my fingers. It fits the pad of my thumb exactly the way they always have, each one made from a cervical spine, C7 to be exact. I put it back and close the drawer. Stand. For myself, a drink I don't need. I think of the girl in the ditch. I think of the way my hands felt, clumsy, out of practice. I think of Mercer's eyes, sharp, curious. I think of next year. Next year will be her 7th anniversary with the department. I allow myself a small, private smile. It wasn't perfect, I say to the empty room, but it will be. I swallow the whiskey, turn off the desk lamp, and start planning. Because the rainy season has officially started.
And there you have it. Turns out the scariest things out there aren't ghosts or demons. It's the very real people you see in the daylight, sipping coffee, smiling back at you from amongst the crowd. Well, until next time.